coming up on Added Time.
The timing of this is ridiculous, and no, he shouldn't have been sacked now.
These guys talk of how they've been in situations where a manager has been sacked back in the Jurassic era. Sorry.
But I think there are people that are stepping into lanes that they should not be in.
They're the only ones that really know what happens in those four walls.
It's a mess. You would say it's typical Manchester United.
Great to see Foz and Boz for more Added Time in 2026.
Always fun. Yeah, it's always fun.
And a big hello to Amy Harrison.
Welcome, Amy. Welcome.
Matilda, Western Sydney Wanderer.
Happy New Year.
Been
Happy
overseas.
New
How's things?
Very good. Yeah, good. Just come off the training patch this morning. Started the year somewhat okay. Getting a point on the weekend. But, yeah, 2026. Exciting times.
At least you were training this morning, makes one of us of the four.
That's true,
Or maybe
yeah.
Boz was out there.
I was out there.
Boz is usually having a run of some description.
100%.
We'll get to why he's in the Johnny Cash outfit in a moment with Manchester United. You weren't singing when you came in when we started talking about United.
But I'm not happy at all. Yeah.
Amy, overall, you're still loving and playing football. It's taking you around the world, so why not?
Yeah, no, it's, the best job in the world when you get to play and do what you love every day, and you can't do it forever, and I think I'm starting to learn that now. 29, so getting on a little bit more, and I think you start to, take in the moments more so, and just enjoying it.
You're at your peak.
Loving every
you're young.
every day.
You're young.
Thank you.
Yeah, you play as long as you possibly can.
That's right. And what about the women's game here in Australia? Like, how do you see it developing at the moment?
Yeah, look, I think obviously we had the massive moment of 2023, the World Cup, and how special that was in this country. And I think as a league, I don't think we really grasped the momentum of it, to be completely honest with you. But I think we're very lucky this year we have another opportunity with the Asian Cup, and exciting times ahead. And we have a few Asian players in our team this year, and just, hearing how special it is to them, and I think the hype that it'll bring to the country all around. I think there's some Gold Coast games, some Perth games, so touching different communities, I think will be really exciting.
Are we favourites to win that competition, Amy, in your opinion?
I think we're definitely up there. I think Japan at the moment are really showing their strengths. I think they're looking really good. Obviously, Ante Milicic is the coach at China now, and we have two Chinese girls in our team, and they speak very highly of him. So I think Asia as a whole in the women's game is definitely improving year on year, but for the Matildas, I think.
Are you sure the girls speak very highly of him, or was this after heading to many balls? Is that a joke?
Well, maybe. I don't know. There's a language barrier, so I'm not sure.
Later in the show, we'll get into what's happening in the WSL, which kicks into gear again this weekend on Stan, and also your thoughts on playing overseas at a really high level, Champions League, and you've got an upfront seat to how good Barcelona are in the women's game as well as the men. So we'll touch on that a bit later on. But let's go with Manchester United. Amy, you're a Liverpool fan, so you're going to enjoy this discussion big style. Ruben Amorim, gone. Right call?
In my opinion, no. Quite simply, 14 months is not enough, and I don't think there's been a disaster, although people will point to statistics that his win record was, I think, the worst since Franco Farrell, and there's other statistics that people will point to, but the circumstances that surrounded everything, no. But the little caveat for that comment that I just made is this: if there are problems behind the scenes, which evidently there are, and we'll get into that a little bit, and he is not being backed in the manner that he'd agreed to when he first joined the club, then sometimes there becomes no other option but for both parties to part ways. But the fact that, and we're going to get onto Chelsea as well, because it's not too dissimilar, that he pretty much unleashed after the Leeds game. Anyone who saw that as well, because the game itself, I actually think they did well, considering the players that they had out. It was a game that could have went either way. A draw was probably a fair result, but to come out and basically point the finger at people behind the scenes alludes to the fact that there have been huge problems. And this comes back to the model, and we'll get onto that in a minute, of what's going on. And in terms of sporting directors and people behind the scenes, are they the ones calling the shots without no accountability whatsoever and leaving it for the manager to take the blame when things go wrong? Also, we've got to ask questions of Amarim, because he has hinted at this in the last year in press conferences. Now, originally, I actually thought, when I say hinted at, he used to say things like, oh, well, if you don't like it, remember with the system when we're talking about him adapting, he'll say, if you don't like it, well, then maybe it's time for a new manager. At the time, remember, English is not his first language. You know, how would we go in Portugal? We might say things in Portuguese that people in Portugal would say, does he know what he's saying in terms of context and so forth? You know, if you take knowledge out without adding any context, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. But it's happened quite a few times. There's no doubt about that. And I think on the weekend it really come to the fore. And that's what we're going to establish to get the bottom of. I don't think that this model is working, especially for certain clubs. There are other clubs that it has worked for, but I really don't think that as a manager or head coach, whatever you want to call it, a manager or head coach, for people to be making decisions, vital decisions about the direction of your team and the way your team play, or the way your team basically employ players that have been signed for you, without having your name to the project, I think it's unaccountable and I think it's dangerous.
I'm surprised that he lasted last season, actually. He finished 15th and then, to get to the Europa League final. Obviously, we know that year Champions League clubs didn't come down, so it was a good year to get there, but then they were extremely poor anyway in the final. And so the question is around the standards of Manchester United and what is expected. Having said that, the timing of this is ridiculous, and no, he shouldn't have been sacked now because he's actually starting to improve it. I don't happen to think that he's improving it enough for Manchester United, but he is certainly improving it. And so for it to happen now tells you very clearly that it's not about the sporting results, because the sporting results are on the rise and are much better, which was what they were hoping in the off-season. So, in other words, there's other factors around which has contributed to this. And if I'm a fan of Manchester United, I'd be incensed by that, because I would be saying, well, now decisions are being made not based on actually where we are in the table and what's occurring. This is more about personalities and the division of roles and the tension between the coach and the sporting director. This is very obviously what's happening. Amarim, I think rightly, made it very clear to the public why he was going to be sacked. He obviously knew it was going to happen. And I think he's done that well to walk out essentially saying, I can't work under these conditions. The timing was okay for him because they are going well also. You know, they're up their highest level in the table effectively since he was there. So it's a mess. You would say it's typical Manchester United. Since 2013 when they won, they've had,
10.
At least 10 managers.
10 different managers, yep.
They've paid out easily in excess of £100 million on payouts alone. That's not what they're paying the people. Yeah. And you would say, well, from 5 years ago or from the Van Gaal era or from any of those times, are you further ahead now than you were there? And I think it's difficult to argue that they are.
Amy, the modern player, you're in your 20s, so I can ask you about this. These guys talk of how they've been in situations where a manager has been sacked back in the Jurassic era. Sorry. No, but a few years ago now, and it was just a matter of you rock up to training, you get on with. Now, in the modern age with these players at Manchester United, and you've been in situations as well, is it the social media factor? We see pictures of Ruben Amorim looking like the most relaxed man walking through the woods with his wife in the last 24 hours as well after the sacking. How does it affect a playing group in the modern era, something like this? I
think, modern era, it's definitely changing because it is so much more common, but it still does affect the group massively, I think. I've had a couple coaches in my time at Wanderers in the past few years, and it does. You're working with one leader at the moment, and then the next day you come in and everything's changed, everything's flipped on its head. And as a leader of the group, and you're trying to keep everyone together, everyone's going through different emotions. Some may be happy, some may be really pissed off, some don't care, and you've got to try and manage 20 plus emotions in one room. It's incredibly tough, but I think it also is a bit of that athlete mentality that the new day starts, you have a new person to impress, whoever comes in, and you just got to put your best foot forward. It's a fresh start. But I think now with, social media and there's photos and there's quotes getting misinterpreted, everything you kind of just take with a grain of salt, and you just go in, and the four walls that you're in, you have to just impress in there, keep the emotions in there, keep the group together, and do, honestly, the only things that you can control, and that's football on the field.
Yeah, I mean...
And as a leader, as captain, you know, you have had a responsibility in these moments because you're talking.
It's tough.
You know, Amy's talking about all of the personalities, and some people take it harder, and some people are happy because they weren't playing, and da-da-da.
Well,
but ultimately, you're responsible as the skipper to get the performance this weekend out of it. So you're very conscious of that, right?
It's probably one of the hardest things you have to do as a leader.
Exactly.
Well, Darren Fletcher's kids have got an interesting predicament in the next couple of weeks with Dad taking over the first team duties while they look and find a new manager. We'll get onto that in a moment. But overall, guys, the structure, I get the feeling, Boz, that you're not the biggest fan of the sporting director model in English football. In certain circumstances, maybe, but it doesn't seem to marry up with how historically English football clubs have worked. Now, in the modern age, with the huge commercialisation, is this where things are getting a bit blurred and a bit confusing?
Most definitely. And look, it's nothing to do with the past, and that I can give an examples right now of Unai Emery at Aston Villa. He's in charge totally of the football department. Okay, so it's not as if I'm not a big fan of it. It's the actual role of the sporting director or directors behind the scenes. I think it's been overcomplicated, and I think there are people that are stepping into lanes that they should not be in. Okay, if Craig Foster was the manager of a club and I was the sporting director, here's what I would think the role is. How can I help you, Craig? Who would you like to sign? Not, this is how I'm going to help you. This is who you are going to sign. That's not working, in my opinion, for the betterment of the club. It's working for the betterment of yourself. It's like these unelected judges or officials making decisions on behalf of everyone. If it goes wrong, they end up blaming the people that are in power. Well, what's the use of being in power in the first place? There is a place for them. For medium to long term, they've got to look out for the club because, like everyone always says, or you say it all the time, the manager is not going to be there forever, understandably. But for the short term, especially at the big clubs, your Chelseas, your Manchester United, who need success immediately for a variety of reasons, whoever's name, i.e. the manager stroke head coach, whatever you want to call it.
Do you care what they're called? Because Amarim was under the impression he was a manager.
He was cryptically making a point. I think it's quite evident. He was cryptically making a point that basically his impression of what he was doing was to be the Unai Emery, the manager. Okay? That's my opinion.
And that must have changed recently.
Well, I think
otherwise he would have said it last season.
Completely.
Okay.
I think completely.
So somehow they're trying to take some control. This Wilcox is trying to take some control from him.
There's Omar Barada, there's Jason Wilcox. Originally there was also David Brailsford and there was also Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth was a very good sporting director, and he used to describe, I remember he used to give an interview a couple of times a year, and he described the job as a sporting director as the centre of the wheel with all the spokes going out, the women's department, the men's department, the youth team, the recruitment, this and that and the other. Like I said, there is a place for them, but not to the point where they're undermining. I mean, you know, for example, if you've got a sporting director, so who decides the culture? If it's the president of the club or the chairman who turns around and says, it's my club, I own it, this is what the culture is going to be. That's a different story, but not people. So just to cut it to simple, if you are the manager, your name's to the project, you, in my opinion, should live and die on your sword, not somebody else's. I understand people turning around and saying, an oversight, an advisor is turning around saying to you, do you want to maybe look at... OK, but it's your decision because at the end of the day, who gets sacked? It's the manager, stroke head coach, not the people behind the scenes who are unaccountable.
What's the right model in the modern day, in your opinion, Amy?
I think stay in your lane. I agree. I think the sporting director has a role, I think, to help the coach, manager, whatever, to help them set up the best team for their philosophy, their culture, how the team's going to work together. Because the sporting director essentially doesn't spend 24/7 with the playing group. It's, you know, they're in their office and they can support, they can help do things off the field, travelling, all those little things. But at the end of the day, when you're spending a crazy amount of time with the same group of people all the time and the coaching staff, they're the only ones that really know what happens in those four walls. And I think the coach, you know, they go through their licenses, they have their philosophies and the way they want to work things. And I think if they're not aligned with the sporting director, then I think it's a recipe for disaster.
Foz, you've obviously been to a lot of clubs on the continent as well, and you've seen the model work. Is it a stay-in-your-lane model that works on the continent, which has tried to infiltrate, it feels like, to infiltrate English football with some success at a place like Manchester City?
Well,
where
that's
it seems like they have their staying there. Who's going to walk into Pep Guardiola's dressing room and say, "Hey, buddy, maybe play a back three or something like that"?
Yeah, exactly. So the reason, I think the starting point for me is the reason why sporting directors became more popular in British football, or English football, as they were on the continent, is largely because over time clubs realised that if you only rely on one person, firstly, and then that person makes all of the signings, all of the key signings, and they have their particular way of playing and the type of player profile and culture they want, then what can very easily happen, and does happen and did happen many times, is that once they get sacked, if results don't go the way, then all of a sudden a new manager comes in and says, well, I don't like this group. And therefore what you had is just constant clean-outs. And so then the cost of that was just ridiculous, and it just doesn't make any sense. So therefore what happened is they started to try and bring some kind of external management principles, I guess, to say how do we manage the, as Boz says, short, medium and longer term success of the club. And there are difficulties with both of them. For example, if you want to sign a Guardiola, then your sporting director or an Ancelotti even, although Real Madrid is a different model. So from a coaching perspective, if they want to coach Real Madrid, you know you do not have total control. That is just a fact. Because the president is going to come in and start signing players. But at least you know the level of players they're going to sign is of the very, very highest level. And so you're going to be working with the best talent. But you don't have complete control. Right? Then at Barca is, I think, a bit of a hybrid model in that they have a profile of players they need. So they do it at times, but you're not going to be able to buy 4 or 5 players who don't fit the way that Barcelona play. We have seen some pretty crazy signings in recent years, actually, but
that's what Manchester City has become in the last decade.
Exactly. So then what? So then it's a choice for both the club and the coaches. They have to be matched. And clearly, what's happened with Amarim, and the reason why I think he's rightly saying this is a mess, and the sporting director should do his job. He actually named them, and he say the scout and so on, because what he's saying is, okay, this was my understanding of the way I was brought here to work, and now what's happening is, for whatever reason, even though they're kind of on the ascent, is now they're taking some of the responsibilities from me, and I'm going to have to take full responsibility for their decisions. So what Guardiola cleverly did was, and what the top coaches can do, is they can bring their own sporting director, if you like, right? So that they know, because the personalities and the politics are critically important. If a sporting director and a coach do fall out, you're in deep, deep, deep trouble, because then you effectively you have to leave. That's why Amorim's done it. I think he's rightly he's actually forced his way out.
Twice in a week, Foz.
Twice
Chelsea.
in a week, and Maresca the same thing.
Nuno Espirito Santo at Nottingham Forest with Edu.
Exactly.
Same.
Edu, and the owner effectively. Who then said, well, you guys have to. That's exactly right. So, I'm not sure there is an ideal model. I actually think it very largely is going to work on the profile and the capabilities of the coach as well. Because if you want to sign one of the top guys, and if you're not Real Madrid, you're going to have to give them more autonomy. They're not going to walk in and let someone with less experience tell them what to do. But if you're a mid-table club, for example, you need to have the plan and sign the coaches to that, and they have to work in that environment. So I think but the whole problem with Manchester United is they just don't know what they are. Like since Ferguson, they just
that's
sign
a very
everyone.
good point. And Ineos have come in, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. They've bought 25% of the club. Part of the deal was to take care of the football department. So let's just roll it back. So originally there was Dan Ashworth, who you know from Newcastle, and done a great job with Gareth Southgate in reinventing the identity of the English football team. Great job.
Yeah, they did.
David Brailsford, Omar Barada, and Jason Wilcox. All right, there's already 4. All right,
Ashworth lasted about 6 months.
Well, there you go. Okay, Brailsford has gone, so now you've got Barada and Wilcox. But let's just roll it back. I think that Manchester United fans deserve to know who was it, or was it a collective thing, appointed Amarim, and what exactly were the terms of reference, i.e.,
I agree.
what was his job description? Was he... I mean, you showed us a press release at the time where it said we're pleased to announce Ruben Amorim as our new head coach.
Yes.
But he was obviously under a different impression. What was the job description? You got Sir Jim Ratcliffe not so long ago, came on and done an interview and said he will be here for 3 years. Right. So what's going on?
In October.
And they've got a right to know that. And, Chelsea, not too dissimilar. We'll get onto that in a little bit as well. Yeah. Because the bottom line is, they said, your name is on the project. Yeah. You're the one who's being sacked. Yeah? And this business that's coming out now, that there was a meeting between Jason Wilcox and Ruben Amorim the day or 2 days before the Leeds game,
Yes.
Friday,
and
where he was questioning what are you going to do.
I mean, like Jason Wilcox has won a Premier League medal. He should know football. You know, he played under the great Sir Kenny Dalglish. How would Kenny Dalglish would have felt at the time at Blackburn if he'd been sat down by the powers that be and said, by the way, how are you going to play tomorrow?
Yeah, what's your tactics?
And what's your tactics and all that?
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, in my opinion, Kenny Dalglish may come and say no.
Many of them would walk.
But I would have said, you know what, I don't even know just yet. I've got an idea, but I might wake up tomorrow and think to myself, I'm going to play a different way. Yeah. Or I might look at a player who doesn't look particularly 100% and play a different way.
Of course they do.
Like I said, this next appointment, which we'll get onto, this is vital for the club because I think they have made progress. You know, last season they were 15th. They were not good. Yeah, there've been some aberrations this year, but there's also been some good things. I mean, you know, the draw at home to Wolves was not good. The fact that they played an hour against Everton, who had 10 men, and they didn't manage to win was not good. No. But there have been other times you looked at it and gone, I can see some progress.
But the thing about it also, Boz, is like this is Manchester United.
That's what I'm saying. But this is what I'm saying to you. But as
like the standards have fallen so low.
Well, we know that. This is where they are.
Yeah,
this is where they are still years away from being genuine title contenders.
And the other thing about, can I just say about Amarim? How many games did you see with Amarim? The thing about, we'll talk about Maresca. At least Maresca had some games where I sat there and watched, wow, this is fantastic. I can see this guy's could create something unbelievable here. I didn't do that in one game with Amarim. And I like the guy. I think a couple of games I did, but it wasn't consistent enough. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is, I think they started from a lower base. You know, if you want to compare them to Chelsea. True.
But
still, you have to be able to do that.
My whole point is that they're 3 points off fourth place. They're in sixth position. Last year they were in 15th. Yeah,
that's right.
Now people will turn around and say they're also 3 points off, I think, 12th place. Okay.
So what?
But the season is still live.
They're on the ascent.
They could conceivably still get into the Champions League.
By the way, what about Levy? Let's not forget Levy, because that's what I'm saying. So what's happened there? Conte's walked out, Andrew's got sacked, all of this thing,
and they've all hinted at it.
And they're saying, well, what is the management of this club? Like, who is setting? And all of those coaches have been complaining about it. So it's clear that there's a number of clubs who've got that kind of, where the ownership are getting people close to them, and the coaches feel isolated and feel as though they're the only ones accountable. And there's going to have to be some type of, they're going to have to manage through it and find a different system.
Amy, do you like watching tennis?
I'm watching it now.
That's exactly the point I was going to make. You can catch it all on Stan Sport across the summer, but right there was two blokes playing tennis and two people watching tennis, and it was good fun. No, it was good debate.
Okay,
it was
interesting. Australian Open. What do you want? That's why it's one of the most important tournaments in the world.
Let's throw some names off the back of the boat. A bit of Burley out there for Manchester United. Could Maresca end up at Manchester United?
We could do a flip.
Yeah. We'll just
talk. They might.
Oh, no,
I mean
Amarim,
a coaching flip.
Amarim, I don't think Garnacho would be too happy with a flip.
No, definitely not.
Wouldn't have thought so. I could see Enzo Maresca there. And Bozza, before we came on, he had a little look, and he'll bring up his thoughts in a second. But this doesn't happen by accident, that Enzo Maresca all of a sudden has gone to the top of those betting markets that they have in the UK.
Do you take that?
Jobs such as
do you want to go into that environment right now?
Exactly.
Terms of reference, surely, when you go in.
Like, if you've just had a falling out with your current employers, do you go into a new one where you've just had the same thing happen at another club?
Or a similar one?
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. But it's amazing how people can change their mind once I start saying, how much are you on, Amy? And you go, $1 million. And so I understand you don't want to come, but I'm going to give you 5. What about now? And you go, well, I'll have a think about it now.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work, they've had a big club. If it does work, they continue to go up.
Well, I think he's a great manager. I agree with what you said about Chelsea.
I think he's very talented.
I think watching Chelsea and the signings they've made, the football he's instilled in that team, I think looking at the next few years down the track, I thought they were going on to something,
me too,
worth watching. And as a Liverpool fan, I knew when I was playing Chelsea the past few years, I'm like, okay, last season you start to think this is actually a tough game, because they were. The Club World Cup last year, I thought they were incredible. So I think
but in your opinion,
talent.
do you think they should make a choice as quickly as possible, or just wait to the summer when there will be other managers available, obviously post-World Cup?
I think if you're wanting the best, you wait.
All right.
I think you
Interesting,
wait.
though, as you mentioned there about Maresca, and I thought his history, he'd know Omar Barada pretty well, I would say, from Manchester City. So that's one name that's out there. Have you got another name that you'd like to throw up there?
Well, yes, but I've got to hold my hand up and say I'm biased, because the next teammate of mine is a friend of mine, Gareth Southgate. I think the job he'd done with England was exceptional, considering where they come from. And they were down so low when they lost to Iceland in the 2016 Euros. I don't think, as a nation, I can remember too many times before when they were as low. It is a very, very difficult place in terms of the pressure. I mean, the whole nation is basically waiting for any type of slip-up.
Is there similarities between England? Not the same, I know. I've
never played for England. I've only witnessed what it's like. I saw it with the late Graham Taylor, what they did to him. I mean, the late Sir Bobby Robson.
Yep.
I mean, it really was like high pressure. And, you know, you have to be able to handle all that very, very well. And he can do that. He can manage upwards and downwards. He's a very good man. He's a very good man. He's got a very lovely way about him. And he did, along with Dan Ashworth, install a new culture, you know, a new identity. And like Craig said before, that's one thing at the moment with Manchester United. We just don't know. Yeah. It's just like, and I really think that experience with England that he's had, his Premier League experience as a manager has been limited, not so much of a player, he's played all the time. And the fact that being from England, I think, makes a difference with knowing about what Manchester United's about. I think foreign coaches, it takes them a little bit of time just to realise quite the cult and the atmosphere that surrounds that. You'll have a slight advantage on that. But regardless, whether we say Gareth, whether we say Oliver Glasner, who's been mentioned, Roberto De Zerbi, Thomas Tuchel after the World Cup, possibly Pochettino, any of these, the fact remains that they've still got to go and get results. So we can have all the best intentions, as they evidently have since Fergie left, but they've got to still go and get results. And the main results, in terms of standards, coming back to what Fozzie said, if every year we should be sitting here saying they are one of the contenders for the title. But when's the last time you could put your hand on your heart and say that Manchester United were genuine contenders for the title? 10 years ago?
Year after Fergie left.
Probably, yeah.
Still to come on Added Time.
The decision-making has been so all over the place that you just don't know where they're going.
He only won the Manager of the Month in November.
Exactly.
You don't just turn into a terrible manager.
The type of control that he wields at Aston Villa would be a problem for them at Manchester United.
The one that's been the most disappointing is Liverpool. Disappointing doesn't even cut close.
Amy, we sound like we're describing something from Jurassic era. Like Chelsea. What are they as a football club? How would you define their... We'll talk about structure here, and these are the heart of the problems with Amarim and also Maresca, but how would you define what Chelsea is as a football club?
I would define them... I would try to define them. I think it's difficult at the moment because it's post-Abramovich era. And what's happened is they've had new leadership groups come in and ownership groups, and I think they're still trying to find their path to success, which is the problem. Because what they used to do was what they did to Maresca, and it was successful for them. You know, you saw Di Matteo come in, for example, and go on and do well, and so you always knew under Abramovich that it was a very similar model to Real Madrid. Like it was here, and if you had a mini period, like forget what happened to Manchester United, that was just impossible. They weren't going to sit around for 12 months and finish 15th. You had to perform immediately. The players knew it. It was very much the culture of the club, and it worked for them. That's why...
Yeah, Mourinho went within 6 months of winning a title.
Yeah, that's right.
Di Matteo went within 6 months of winning a Champions League.
As soon as it started to not work, and that's the same as Real Madrid. Like you bring in a Xabi Alonso, one of the most talented young coaches in the world, you put him in Real Madrid, it doesn't matter. If he can't manage the squad quickly, he doesn't have time. That's their model, and look how many Champions Leagues they've got. So there is no one size fits all in football, right? Because we often say, well, it's ridiculous that they sacked those people, but the truth is that clubs like those two have been successful doing otherwise. But I don't know exactly what they are now because I don't know the ownership group well enough. They don't have the track record that he obviously was able to create, and therefore... You know, the decision-making has been so all over the place from Potter to everyone else that you just don't know where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, they've got an interesting model, don't they, Amy, in the sense that they've gone after young players. They spread their contracts over a very long time, so if they make a mistake in the transfer window, it's mitigated by the fact that that contract, that transfer fee is spread out. So it's almost so new that you don't really know exactly what it's going to look like when it's all said and done.
And I think football is, you know, those things that you implement within the club and the business models, they take time. And that's why I'm being so surprised by this, because he only won the Player of the Month, Manager of the Month in November.
Exactly.
Like, it's been 5 weeks since that. So you don't just turn into a terrible manager.
That's crazy, yeah.
And you don't just turn into losing the group in 4 weeks. Obviously, he hasn't, and it's background, you know, politics and disagreements and whatnot. But if you're signing players for that amount of time, you have to back the manager to also instill those things in, you know, not 10 years, but you give them time. And he has. He's not like he's not won anything. Like, they've been quite successful in the past year.
trophies.
Yeah, they have, yep.
So, it disappoints me because, you know, I just don't think a manager deserves that. And, of course, it's background, it's politics, it's conversations, all that, it's blow-ups and powers and all that. But as a playing group, to know that that's happening behind the scenes and you have to now change your dynamic and the group changes, it's just... Football is turning into a very different way, and this model, obviously, where you know, it's only the start of what they're doing, but it's just, it's frustrating to watch.
We look at Maresca, Manager of the Month, November, Amarim, October.
Yeah.
$1.10 favourite is Unai Emery in December for the Manager of the Month, boss.
Yeah. You don't want to get it.
It couldn't happen to your Villa as well, could it? You got 2 there.
Well, he's been mentioned. He's on the list as well. In terms of
would one of those clubs go after Unai Emery?
There was a report coming out. Well, Manchester United definitely were interested in him. That was a report, but the report that came back that I read, and I spoke to somebody for confirmation last night, and they pretty much confirmed it was the type of control that he wields at Aston Villa would be a problem for them at Manchester United. So there you go. So, you know, the hybrid, what Fozzie was talking about, I can understand it. The only thing you get yourself in trouble if you don't have clear lines of responsibilities when you have that little bit of crossover. He mentioned Chelsea. You know, Chelsea under Abramovich was still the most successful English domestic club doing what they did. Okay, but it's got to be absolutely clear. So Unai Emery, like I said, just to get those odds for you, he's currently at, well, what is he? He's third favourite. And they would, I think, would seriously look at it. But like it was explained to me, they don't think that his model that he has would suit the Manchester United. But this is what I'm saying to you. The fans deep down, what they truly crave is success, especially at clubs like Manchester United.
And Chelsea.
All right, and Chelsea, because they've been used to it, understandably so. And at the moment, not only we're talking about Manchester United, you know, at least Chelsea have won 2 trophies in the last 8 months or so, but at Manchester United, it's been some time. And the thing I think they most crave, they just want to know what is going on with their club. Now, there's always 2 sides to every story, because you do get managers sometimes who play up if they don't get their own way. And that's happened before in the past, and we've seen that. But again, it just comes back to a simple thing for so far as I'm concerned. If you're the one in the front line with your name on the project, you deserve help, not hindrance, help, because you're the one that's going to have to pay with their job ultimately. By all means, have people there to look at the medium and the long term. I think that is very important. And this should be discussed before they sign. This is the type of club we are. We play the same way throughout all our teams. The culture is set by the history that's been at this club. Don't you worry about that. What you need to... It needs to be sorted out at the beginning, not halfway through.
Exactly.
Because at certain clubs, like Fozzie made the point, you know, let's be honest, if that was Real Madrid or Chelsea under Abramovich, Liverpool's run of 9 losses in 12 games, only slight title, not you're out. Gone.
Gone.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Crystal balls. We'll talk about FA Cup. Starts this weekend on Stan Sport in a moment. But WSL, Amy, I'm intrigued by this. All of a sudden, Chelsea, who have just had a stranglehold in this competition for a very long time, they're in strife because Manchester City, how have they done this? And Mary Fowler, I can't imagine she's too far off coming back.
No, definitely not. I think, now that they're back now, I'm sure we'll see her probably within the coming weeks. But Man City, for me, I think last year they were very close. I think Bunny Shaw got injured maybe 3 or 4 rounds to go, and I think if they had her to finish up the season, they would have come very close to winning it again.
She's their great Jamaican striker who scored a million goals.
Unbelievable. And they've obviously signed Viv Miedema from Arsenal a year or so ago, and I think she's now settled in really well. They have a great partnership up the top with her and Bunny Shaw, and that leadership as well that I think City have struggled with the past few years. They've always shot ahead, but then when the pressure's been on them, they've kind of crumbled a little bit towards the back end with results, whereas Chelsea, on the other hand, had that experience, so they're just skyrocketed in that back end. But this year, I think City have just got it all together.
So with the investment in the women's teams in these big Premier League clubs. So Arsenal for a very long time have done it well. Chelsea have done it well. Manchester City seem to have realised, if we just invest a little bit more,
100%.
good things are going to happen. Is there anyone else around, or is it mainly those three?
Mainly those three. The one that's been the most disappointing is Liverpool. They have been disappointing, doesn't even cut it close. They're bottom of the ladder, 3 points, and even their performances have just been diabolical. The standards that they have from reading things on and off the field are just really, really poor. And for a club like Liverpool, it's alarming to say the least. But for City, I think they've realised that they have a lot of Japanese players as well, which I think has really helped them culture-wise. And Arsenal, they've set the standard for a very long time. I think now they've almost got a lot of big name players that it's like hard to manage. So finding that right dynamic, I think, in the women's game as well, with now the more investment and having squad depth as well. Obviously, there's a lot more games that the players are having to play, not much off-season. So trying to manage all those different things. But for me right now, Man City have really got it down to a T.
And Amy, traditionally America have been the powers in women's football, and the American League has been the #1 league. But Europe, obviously, the last 10 years has thrown pretty much everything at it. Would you still say, the strongest leagues in the world is the American one, or do you think it's now it's pretty much?
I think it's real neck and neck.
Neck and neck,
I think there's a lot of debate about it, purely because the American League is so talented, but they're still in a salary cap, so they're having a big struggle to keep their best players. There at the moment, they've just come out with a new rule of how to keep a marquee spot available and kind of pay them to keep those big name players there. But for Europe, I think, we've seen Barcelona with the investment and how good they are. But in Liga F, in that league, it's a terrible league in terms of competitiveness, because they just go and win everything by an arm's length, and they're real tough games of Champions League. The WSL, I think, have done it really well, and I think they made the most after the Euros win in 2021?
2021.
I think
2020?
2022, I think it was, maybe.
Around there.
Around then.
COVID
I don't know what year it is anymore.
Yeah, we're all in a vortex for 3 years there, so anyway.
After that, the investment, the quality, the eyes on the game, the broadcast was just impeccable. Phenomenal. And I think they've really reaped the rewards of that. The German League are really going through that now. They're about to host the next Euro, so they want to get that right for that period of time. But I think now, the big clubs like your Man Cities, they've noticed that the women's game, there's potential there, and if we invest, then it helps our brand. So I think it's a very good debate at the moment, which is good. It's what you want.
It's good competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Strive higher.
Absolutely.
And what about ahead of the Asian Cup then, the Matildas? We've got so many across in the English League at the moment. How are they going, and how do you think we're shaping up there?
Good, really good. Obviously, we have, the Steph Catley's, who's gone into a leadership role at Arsenal, stepped into that centre-back role, so a bit different from the left-back, which hopefully, helps her longevity as well, and competition-wise, gets her playing the whole time. But she's been great. Caitlin Ford, obviously, has been excellent over there. Ellie Carpenter's obviously gone to Chelsea, and I think she's been great. I think she got an assist, 2 goals at the moment over there. And obviously Sam Kerr's back now, getting more match minutes and stuff. So there's a fair few Lana Kennedys at London City Lionesses. Bit more of a sub role, but she's getting, that competitive game time over there. And so they're all in good shape. I think Hayley Rasser's made the move to Germany. So a lot of good European minutes and game time, and a fair few of those girls are Champions League too. So a lot of match minutes, which is good for Asian Cup time.
And hopefully Mary just around the corner to
just
in time. And Sam as well, happy wife, happy life. So there you go. After the weekend, FA Cup this weekend, gents, as well. So we've got a lot of, like Wrexham Forest actually starts the weekend. So, the Hollywood
big chance
boys
of an upset there.
There is a chance,
and Forest. A few Premier League games as well. But, Boz, I just want to touch on something. Third round FA Cup is always a special weekend in English football. It's huge because it's where the leagues converge, and you have your non-league teams that can somehow 100%. Make it through to this stage.
100%.
What's the best experience you ever had playing an FA Cup where you're literally playing somewhere where, like, it's like you're back in Sydney playing at an NPL ground type thing, that atmosphere right on top of it?
No disrespect to this club I'm going to mention, but when I say, I wouldn't say worse, I would say in terms of facilities and all that, probably even less at that time than what I was used to growing up in Australia. We played against, I think it was Exeter in early 1994. They nearly got beat. Really, with Aston Villa, nearly got beat.
They just make the game
it was
so
just like,
tough.
Well, it's just like, just one of those grounds you just basically go and stand on. And the game was so difficult. Because normally, FA Cups traditionally played first week of January. Now it's like the second week of January. When you get the worst of the weather. And the grounds are not too good as well. Of course, majority of Premier League and Championship grounds, you have to say, are immaculate now. So that sort of takes away the advantage a little bit.
Exeter's home ground.
Well, no, it was all over the place.
Yeah.
Not like shocking, but we had not for like long grass and so. And seriously, nearly got beaten. So you've got to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
It's like these teams and these players.
Yeah.
It's a game of their life.
Yeah, it is.
They're riding up here, and this is another. No disrespect, but it's,
you're 100% right.
You don't want to fall to that level.
And actually, that season, we got knocked out by a championship team at that time, Bolton Wanderers, in the 5th round. So that was like the round of 16.
What kind of advice were you getting from the Exeter home end?
Oh, well, that obviously varies in terms of how you're doing and so forth. But it really is special. Yeah. That's one of the true special things. And we've seen it here in Australia with the FA Cup when the so-called lesser teams are given that opportunity to play against the big boys. It's really a great thing.
Do you ever cop a fun third rounder in the FA Cup?
Not really, but I think the competition itself means a lot to all of our generations, and so I hope that the young ones here are still watching it, because when we were growing up, the FA Cup finals was actually the big moment of the year.
Yeah, it was.
And
it's about the only game that was televised.
Yeah, so we used to have one like match of the day every Monday night. So we would have one show every week, and that was effectively all the football that we had. And so the FA Cup final was a game.
Live European football. I think from memory it was about the
middle of the night.
One.
Yeah, like 1 or 2 a.m. or whatever
Earlier,
it was.
I mean, even before that.
And all young footballers would be up, or would be up in our teams. And we were at the RAS in Canberra, and everyone would be watching it at 1 or 2 in the morning, because this was our opportunity to see where everyone wanted to be.
Amy, we sound like we're describing something from the Jurassic era.
Craig Johnson scoring that FA Cup final to take Liverpool to the double in 1986, I think it was so much of an inspiration to so many of us.
Absolutely. That's why there's so many Liverpool fans in this country.
I actually played with her daughter growing up.
Oh, really?
Harley. Yeah. We all didn't know at the time, that was her dad, and then it started to go. I'm like, oh my, wow.
How good.
Yeah, legend.
OK, well, Wrexham Forest, I'll throw this in, but Everton, Sunderland, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Spurs, Aston Villa,
that'll be interesting.
Manchester United, Brighton, all those Premier League teams.
Yeah, well, Manchester United, Brighton's huge because of the fact that obviously that's going to be the second game under the interim caretaker Darren Fletcher.
Yep.
They've got Burnley away on, I think it's Thursday morning our time. Spurs, Aston Villa, I'm biased, I'll say Aston Villa. Newcastle, Bournemouth, sorry Adam. I think it's a good chance for Bournemouth, and I think it'd be better for Newcastle to be out of a major competition as they are in 4.
Yes.
And I'll take Everton to beat Sunderland, because even though Sunderland's done brilliant, without 6 players who are at the African Cup of Nations, I think Regis Lebris's Mendes will be one that they can know they can rest a few players and take the foot off the pedal. There you go.
There you go.
Great.
Well, enjoy all that, because it's all on Stan Sport. FA Cup, WSL, Premier League. Let's all laugh at Manchester United. No, let's not all laugh at Manchester United.
And Champions League returning in a couple of weeks as well.
Exactly.
Match day 7.
Exactly. Amy, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
See you soon on Added Time. But as we end the show on Added Time, Nestri Irankunda and a stack of other Australians are involved in the FA Cup this weekend. And Nestri caught up recently with Stan Sport ahead of Watford's clash against Bristol City. This is a little sneak peek. You can catch the rest on the Stan Sports platform.
Training at the park with a couple of friends, trying techniques, seeing things on YouTube, and training with, top players as well. Craig Goodwin, obviously back in Australia, having him right in front of me to learn from him on how to take free kicks was what helps me. Amazing, to be honest, to have Australians here, to be able to play against them and just to compete with them. Yeah, it's just great to see them, We still have the same goals, same achievements that we want to reach. I've changed my position a bit. I'm not really a winger anymore.
This has been another Stan Sport production.